I am the one and only Mr. Grimreaper 512 with the one and only Dark Knight 987.
Yes.
And we're going to do a little something different. This evening, me and Knight are going to go back to the year 1985 and talk about the very first Wrestlemania. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of my brand new segment on my channel. Welcome to UBW Inside the Ring. Enjoy. Peace. Hello again, everyone. I'm, as always, Mr. Grimreaper 512 with the one and only Dark Knight 987, and welcome to the very first episode of my brand new show, Inside the Ring. Now, Inside the Ring, before we get started, Inside the Ring is a classic pay-per-view segment that I'm gonna start doing from now on. I told you guys about it on Facebook that I was gonna start doing this. I was supposed to do this back in April around WrestleMania time, but things got topsy-turvied and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the very first WrestleMania. This WrestleMania was the very first WrestleMania was inside the Madison Square Garden. The year was the day this happened was March 31st, 1985. It was taken. Yeah. He was born in 87. I was born in 88.
Correct.
And we're gonna go through the matches. Remember this. The main event that took place for this event was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T against the late Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and the late Roddy Piper.
Yes.
Also, this was the very start of the rock and wrestling era, because Cyndi Lauper was involved with WWF at the time,
Yes.
and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about the matches that happened. In this, we're going to talk about the matches that happened in this broadcast. Okay, so the very first match was Tito Santana against the Executioner.
That's right.
Tito Santana won the match by submission.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about that very first match between Santana and the Executioner?
I know it was a good match. You know, this would start. So first WrestleMania started at what would be known as all the WrestleManias in the years to come. And had it not been for this first WrestleMania, we would have known WrestleMania 2, 3, 4, 5, and down the line. So so this is the very first match. It was the very first match. They started it all, and Tito Santana, who was a great, a legend who has former tag champion. He's been the legendary Rick Martel's Strike Force, also has Matador, and of course Rick Martel was a while after that. They went their ways. But Santana, that was a good match. And in the end, I mean, Santana came out on top of the submission, and that's what would kick it off for all of us. The very first match, the very first WrestleMania between those two. That was, good match.
Yeah, so the next match after this one was the late King Kong Bundy, accompanied to the ring by Jimmy Hart, taking on Special Delivery Jones. I don't really remember. It's been a while since I seen the first WrestleMania. I saw it when it was on VHS. WWF home video back in the day. But
VHS, yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen the first WrestleMania. But what I remember, I love King Kong Bundy. If you guys don't know who King Kong Bundy is, King Kong Bundy was a wrestler. And poor guy passed away. Unfortunately, but he was one of the greatest wrestlers. He was a legend in his own right. King Kong Bundy was the most terrifying son of a bitch to ever come out of the '80s in the WWF.
Exactly. Was Vader, you had King Kong Bundy again.
I don't really remember. I don't really remember SD Jones.
Yeah. I don't know much about him either, but unfortunately, he also has passed away.
Yeah.
That doesn't here it says. But yeah, he wrestled in the early days before him and I started watching wrestling. We don't know much about him, but we all do know that he is a legend in his time. There in the old school days of professional wrestling. So.
Yeah. SD Jones. So in the matchup, King Kong Bundy beat the hell out of this poor dude. And things went from bad to worse and stuff. And SD Jones lost the matchup against King Kong Bundy. And it was a good match and stuff like that. But what did you think about King Kong Bundy against SD Jones in the second?
Well, people will see the way that Bundy is this huge man versus SD Jones, who was not really, the size of Bundy. So people knew that Bundy was going to take it out. And it says here it was actually a quick match. According to the results here, it was actually a 25-second match. So it was actually pretty quick. And like I was saying when we were talking about Bundy, before there was the Uncle Son, before there was Vader, before there was Earthquake, there was King Kong Bundy. He was the most terrifying big wrestler. Any wrestler, you could tell they were trying to show that they weren't afraid of him. They weren't afraid because this guy was a monster, trust me. And Bundy put on a lot of moments matches, and my particular ones, of course, we'll talk about another WrestleMania someday. We'll be WrestleMania 2 inside the Steel Cage, which is a legendary Hulk Hogan. That was a classic showdown. And of course, he had Jimmy Hart as an actor before. Bundy went with Bobby Heenan. This was when he was with the Jimmy Hart. But it was a quick match, and history that set the record 25 seconds, quick match. But Bundy showed everybody why he's the big man. And another thing about Bundy was when he pinned, he wanted a 5 count. After he wanted them to count to 5. That was another thing that Bundy wanted them to like. That he did that. So that was quick match. As Steve Delivery Jones did what he had to try to do, but in the end, he can match it to Bundy. Not much I got to say about that. Yeah.
Okay, so the next matchup would be the Dragon Ricky Steamboat. Taking on the man that would later become the one and only Doink the Clown.
Yep, the
man himself, Matt Bourne. And what a matchup! Ricky Steamboat won this matchup against Matt Bourne. But Matt Bourne put up a huge fight in this match.
He did.
And Matt Bourne was a good wrestler. God rest his soul, but Matt Bourne. I kind of wish there was something about Matt Bourne. There was a wrestling show that I went to back in Austin. It used to be called. There was a wrestling. There's a wrestling company in Austin that was. It used to be called Capital Texas Power Wrestling, CTPW.
Yes.
I don't know what it's called now. It was run by a gentleman by the name of George de la Isla. And I remember there was a day when Matt Bourne made his indie debut when he took on I forget who he faced, but it was Doink the Clown against somebody. I forget. I think it was.
It's been a while.
I think it was. I think it was a wrestler by the name of Devastator. I think. I'm not sure.
It's been a long time.
But yeah. Okay, so moving on to the fourth match. This was Brutus the Barber Beefcake, accompanied to the ring by Johnny Valiant, to take on the son of the legendary Bruno Sammartino, David Sammartino.
Yes, he's still around.
This matchup went to no contest, a double disqualification. I think what happened was let's see here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It says. Beefcake threw David Sammartino out of the ring. Valiant lifted him up and slammed him to the cement floor. He then pushed Sammartino back into the ring before being attacked by Bruno. A short while later, all four men began fighting in the ring, and the match ended in no contest.
That's right.
So,
it's all this.
Yeah. So, what do you remember? Because I've never seen this dude wrestle before. I've never seen David Sammartino wrestle before. What do you?
Yeah, I never. Yeah, sorry, yeah, I never heard about David, but I know that his dad was a legendary wrestler. Guy wrestled Bruno Sammartino, the Italian stallion. You know, I guess he was trying to follow his dad's footsteps as a wrestler, and it was great that his birth to have your father in your corner is a great thing. Because Bruce Beefcake was a legendary wrestler as well. One of my favorite legends too. And of course, I mentioned my older brother. He used to watch the wrestling for a little bit and went to the wrestling phase. That was his favorite legend. His favorite legend was Bruce Beefcake. And yeah, the short story yellow women in the sequel. Anyway, but it was. I really wish to me there's a winner in this one instead of a no contest. I think the match should have kept going. Yeah. Now it said that it slammed him on the cement floor. Now that was before they had the mats. Because when you get slammed on the cement floor, that's not pretty. It hurts. But I really wish we could have had a real quick one because I would love to have either David Sammartino come out on top or someone. I wonder at least. But it was a crazy match, and that was the beginning of it. You would say all hell would break loose, basically.
Yeah. So, I remember watching Brutus the Barber Beefcake back when I was a kid. I saw some old school wrestling back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
This had to have been maybe around the Attitude Era or something like that when I was... Because I didn't really know much about Brutus Beefcake growing up when I was a little bit smaller. But I do remember watching some stuff, like some stuff from the 80s and the early 90s of him. Johnny Valiant, of course, you know who is. He's the late. I think Johnny Valiant's gone too. His brother Jimmy Valiant, I know who he is. He's a tough son of a bitch. So this match ended in no contest. Another match that ended by countout, which I think is dumb and stupid, was the late Junkyard Dog taking on Greg the Hammer Valentine, accompanied to the ring by Jimmy Hart. This match was for the WWF Intercontinental Championship. And I think that how this match ended was just complete bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I think JYD should have been the fucking Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah, I think he would have been a great champion. Yeah, exactly. I think he would have been a good Intercontinental Champion. But as the rules had at the time was that titles couldn't change hands on a disqualification or countdown, so that's why it was. But yeah, I agree with him. Yeah, this match could have gone in. Again, this is another match that should have had a good winner. And yeah, like I said before, I think Jinder would have been a great Intercontinental champion. I actually saw that. I could picture him in the title.
Yeah, so we're gonna move on to the next matchup, which is for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championships. The Iron Sheik and the late Nikolai Volkov, accompanied to the ring by our beloved UBW founder, the late Classy Freddie Blassie, taking on the United States, the U.S. Express, which is Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo, you know better as IRS, with coming to the ring by the late Captain Lou Albano. Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov were two of the most hated fucking heels in professional wrestling, and there's a reason for that. I think the '80s the '80s was a bad time, really. We had AIDS, we had the HIV virus, we had a bunch of stuff going on horribly. I think there was a war happening during the '80s.
Yeah, something like that.
And it didn't get any better when we got into the '90s because of the Gulf War in the '90s, in the early '90s.
Yeah.
Because Iron Sheik would later turn there's another wrestler by the name of Sgt Slaughter that Iron Sheik I forget who's the guy that would always hang around Iron Sheik. I forget what his fucking name is.
That would come with Iron Sheik?
Yeah. He was an Iraqi sympathizer, if I remember correctly.
Oh, you mean when Sarge was the heel?
Yeah, when Sergeant Slaughter was a heel.
Okay. So what Grim was talking about, if you remember WrestleMania 7 when Hulk Hogan took on Slaughter when he was a heel, so they were known as the Triangle of Terror. It was Sergeant Slaughter leading the charge. You had Iron Sheik, who was under the name of Colonel Mustafa, and their manager was General Adnan.
Yeah, General Adnan.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
I do know about the career of Barry Windham, and I do know about the career of Mike Rotundo, who would later become IRS. Freddie Blassie, God rest his soul, was a fucking fucking heel to no ends.
Exactly.
And he'll be missed. I remember during the invasion phase, which is later on in 2001. Freddie Blassie. There's an episode of Monday Night Raw where Freddie Blassie showed up.
Yeah, I remember.
And rallied the troops and shit like that against the fucking ECW and WCW.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Oh. So many memories. Oh, why did WWE have to suck now? Damn it.
I know, man. Yeah, it's not the same anymore. But yeah, this was a great tag team match for the tag team titles. And like, remember saying, Nikolai Volkov versus Iron Sheik, they were the most hated villains, the hated teams in the history. And they would have their ways to win. And of course, like it said there, apparently when Sheik hit him in the head with the cane, with Blassie's cane, and Blassie was also, you had to hate him, but you had to respect him because God rest his soul, so many memories. And as you notice too, when him and I watch Saturday when he watches the pay-per-views, sometimes you hear that dark voice, sometimes it was Freddie Blassie's voice in the beginning of those promos to start the pay-per-views. God, I remember that.
Yeah, I love Freddie Blassie. I love him and I miss him.
Yeah, and then of course, like we say, we know about Barry Windham, who became part of the New Blackjacks with Bradshaw.
Yeah.
JBL's you know him as. And of course, Mike Rotundo, who was IRS, who teamed up with the Main Dollar Man is Money Inc. And of course, everybody was expressed now. Of course, originally, many of you may not know, or those of you may know, the theme song they were going to use was given to Hulk Hogan, which was "I Am a Real American." Originally, they were going to use that, but instead they gave it to Hulk Hogan instead to use. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
The U.S. Express was going to use Hulk Hogan's theme.
The Real American theme. Yeah, originally the Real American theme was going to be used for the U.S. Express, but they went ahead and said they're going to give it to Hulk Hogan instead because it suited him better. So yeah, they originally were going to give it to him. And another thing, I used to have the figure of that Barry Windham in that attire from WrestleMania when it was the U.S. Express. Yeah. Barry Windham was really cool. I don't know what happened to it. Yeah,
yes. So we're gonna move on to one of my favorite matches. Two of the greatest giants to ever step foot in the history of professional wrestling. This is the Body Slam Challenge. It was the late Andre the Giant against the late Big John Studd, with accompanied to the ring by Bobby the Brain Heenan. And I remember this. I remember watching this when I was a kid. I remember we had the. I remember I had rented it. I had rented the WrestleMania, the first WrestleMania on VHS. Back when we had Blockbuster and Hollywood Video and shit like that, and I remember me and my dad sitting down on the couch just watching this match, and I remember being so fucking thrilled when Andre the Giant slammed that big bastard. He slammed that big son of a bitch, Big John Studd. He not only did he slam his ass, he also made a patsy out of Bobby the Brain Heenan, who was an asshole back then.
Oh, yeah, you had to hate him. You had to hate Bobby Heenan. That's why everybody called him the Weasel. He didn't like it.
But I remember the matches that Bobby Heenan had. There was one in particular. He used to wear this. They used to have this weasel costume.
Yes, the match with the late great Ultimate Warrior. Yes.
Yeah, the weasel costume, the weasel, I guess he calls it the weasel match, the weasel costume match, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Where the stipulations were that if Bobby the Brain Heenan lost, he had to wear this costume and shit like that, and it was the funniest fucking shit I've ever seen in my entire life.
It was great. Funny thing too, I was at Target one time and they made they made Bobby Heenan come with that costume. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I've seen the I think they have. Let me see if I can try to find it real quick.
Look up there is that figure. But yeah, the loser of that match, the loser of that match with the Weasel suit. Yeah, it was funny. Bobby Heenan thought he could wrestle the Ultimate Warrior, God bless his soul. Yeah, it didn't work, but yeah, Bobby Heenan took it. And people remember the 90s and the 80s, Bobby Heenan would come out and wrestle with, that ringside with either like a match with Rick Rude or Andre. Fans would go, so he hated it.
Holy shit, yeah, you're right, dude.
I told you.
Okay, let me see if I can get a picture of this here.
Sure, you can bring it up real quick. This is just what I was talking about. But, yeah, so that's what Penta Janet did. Weasel.
Yeah, it was WWE. It was Elite series. It was an Elite series.
Yep.
Let's see if I can pull up the picture here.
We can show you.
That way y'all can see this picture, because this shit is hilarious.
It is. You can actually get that Bobby Heenan figure, and it comes with the Weasel costume. You can put him in it. Maybe you can do your own version of the match, and you can do your own.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see here. Okay, so this is the picture right here.
This is it.
This is the picture right here. This is WWE Elite. If I remember, I think it was WWE Elite Series 7.
I believe it is, yes.
The Legends thing, and this is the picture right here. This is a picture of Bobby Heenan in that fucking costume. That Weasel costume. I remember seeing this at the store one time, and I couldn't stop myself from fucking laughing my ass off. That shit was hilarious.
Yes.
But anyway, but yeah, the body slam match. One of the greatest fucking moments in the history of the WWF, when Andre the Giant slammed that big bastard. Not to mention that $15,000 that were in that WWF bag. He took all that money out and threw that fucking money in the crowd.
He was sharing the wealth, man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, because fucking Bobby Heenan was a prick and an asshole.
Yes. Oh my god.
So yeah, that shit was hilarious.
It was.
But yeah. So we're gonna go to the next match. Which was the WWF Women's Championship. It was the legendary Wendy Richter. I believe. I think she's still around.
Yeah, she is. She's still around. She's retired. She's 59, isn't that right?
Yeah, and she was accompanied to the ring by 80s pop star Cyndi Lauper. And she took on Lilani Kai, who was accompanied to the ring by the late Fabulous Moolah. And I'm gonna read this here real quick. Okay, after all men had left ringside, it was time for the WWF Women's Championship match between Wendy Richter, accompanied to the ring by Cyndi Lauper, against Lilani Kai, managed by former WWF Women's Champion, the Fabulous Moolah. Shortly after the match began, Moolah grabbed Richter as she was outside on the floor, but Lauper saved her from an attack. Kai then performed a flying crossbody from the top rope, but Richter used Kai's momentum to roll up Kai in a pinning position. With this pin, Richter became the new WWF Women's Champion.
Yep.
So this match, and it says here, this match was 6 minutes and 14 seconds.
Yeah.
So Wendy Richter, I don't really know much about her career. All I know is that she was a wrestler in the 80s.
That's right.
I think Dark Side of the Ring, when they were talking about the Fabulous Moolah, I think she was part of that.
Yes, I believe she appeared on that, yeah.
A lot of shit. And when I watched, I don't know if Knight saw the episode of Dark Side of the Ring about the Fabulous Moolah, but Moolah's, but what they said about her is so fucked up.
Oh my god, yeah, it was. Yeah. I did see that actually.
And I'm surprised that she had a career in wrestling with all the shit that they said about her. But Wendy Richter was a legendary wrestler, and I don't really know much about Lilani Kai.
Not much. I don't know much about her either. Like I said, they were, back this was the beginning of women's wrestling, mind you. Before you had Trish Stratus, before you had Lita, Chyna, before you had Ivory, before you had Jacqueline. These were the women that set that foundation for future women's wrestlers.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Lilani Kai or Bundy Richter, but I do know that they did set the stage for what was to be, for women to be in professional wrestling. So, but that was a good match. Of course, you had Cyndi Lauper, who was at the time a senior, pop star or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you had the late Fabulous Moolah. Yeah, of course, they said a lot of things about her, but we always remember Fabulous Moolah for what she did, and she was also the star of women's wrestling as well. So, but yeah, that was.
Because she was the first WWF Women's Champion.
She was.
Held that title a while.
She did.
So I don't really know much about this particular match. I remember watching it. I didn't really.
Yeah.
pay no mind to it, really, be honest. Because, okay, I want to before I go any further, I want to talk about WWE's so-called women's revolution crap that they keep. See, back in the day, women's wrestling was so far much better than the shit that we see now. WWE wants to talk about this women's revolution crap. Where the hell was this women's revolution crap when you had there was none of this. Every fucking week they fucking push this women's revolution crap down fucking people's throats, and it's stupid. It's stupid and retarded and dumb. Tell me again, where the hell was this women's revolution crap back when I was watching the Attitude Era?
Yeah, really.
If you cared so fucking much about women's wrestling, you should have done this whole women's revolution crap back in the 90s. But whatever. WWE's so far up its ass, it's not even funny. But we're going to talk about now the last and final match, which was the legendary Hulk Hogan teaming up with Mr. T, accompanied to the ring by the late Superfly Jimmy Snuka.
Yes, sir.
As they took on the late Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, the late Roddy Piper, and Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. This was a tag team match with the late Muhammad Ali and the late Pat Patterson as the special guest referees.
That's right.
This match was let me see, trying to remember. Let me read this real quick. The main event, last match of the night pitted Hulk Hogan and Mr. T with Jimmy Snuka against Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff, and Cowboy Bob Orton. Muhammad Ali was a guest referee on the outside of the ring. New York Yankees manager Billy Martin was a guest ring announcer. Liberace, accompanied by the Rockettes, was the guest timekeeper. Piper, Orndorff, and Orton made their way to the ring as drums and bagpipes played, causing the crowd to boo. Crowd favorites Hulk Hogan, Mr. T, and Snuka made their way to the ring next. The match began with Mr. T and Piper in the ring, and the two traded blows. Midway through the match, all four men began brawling in the ring. Muhammad Ali punched Piper in an attempt to restore order. After the match's order was restored, Orndorff and Piper had the offensive advantage. As Orndorff locked Hogan into a full Nelson, Orton climbed the top rope to attempt to knock out Hogan. Instead, Orton mistakenly hit Orndorff, and Hogan pinned him to win the match. In frustration, Piper knocked out the in-ring official Pat Patterson before he and Orton retreated backstage, leaving Orndorff alone in the ring with Hogan, Mr. T, and Snuka. So, here's what I was... there's an interesting story about this particular... well, actually... Was it this match or was it the boxing? Was it the boxing match that Piper and Mr. T had?
I think that was up to that boxing. That boxing match took place until WrestleMania 2 the following year.
Yeah.
That was when Piper would start. Because it says here after math here it says here that let's see. Okay. In the news story on WrestleMania, after WrestleMania, Roddy Piper began training Bob Orton as a boxer. Hogan accepted the challenge on behalf of Mr. T to face Orton in the match on the February 15th at age 6 Saturday Night's Main Event 5. After Mr. T won the match, Orton and Piper attacked him, leading to a boxing match at WrestleMania 2 between Piper and Mr. T. At the second annual WrestleMania, Piper was disqualified in the fourth round.
Yeah, and the reason why, and there's an interesting story about that. Piper said in an episode of Legends of Wrestling when he was on Legends of Wrestling. It was an old show on the old
yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Classics on the Man thing before they moved to the WWE Network and all that.
Yeah.
Piper said it best. He said Mr. T was having trouble. He and Mr. T had gotten into it over how they were going to end the match and stuff like that. And Piper did not want to do a boxing contest. He's a wrestler. Piper didn't want to have nothing to do with the boxing stuff.
Oh no.
But they forced him into that boxing match against Mr. T. And Piper said it himself that he hated that match. He hated being in that match with Mr. T.
Yeah.
Because T all Mr. T wanted was to get a check, according to Piper.
Oh wow.
So really, Mr. T did not care for the business.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's interesting to know that the first WrestleMania is how they started their little war against each other.
That's right.
Which ended up causing Piper to be pissed off, to get pissed off. He was pissed off in the match. I don't blame him. I remember watching that boxing match that they had at WrestleMania 2. We will talk about WrestleMania 2 another time.
Yes.
But I do remember that match, and it was it was not the greatest match that I've ever seen. But what did you think of the main event between the tag team main event?
Well, it was a great main event, and of course, the WWF title was not on the line yet, but Hulk Hogan, he was the big legend at the time, and he was Mr. T, who was from Hollywood, in movies, and was his partner, and that was the first time you ever we'd see a celebrity interaction in WrestleMania. And then, of course, you had the late Roddy Piper, and the late Mr. Wonderful, who, as many of you may know, passed away recently. Orton. Now, WWE who's more Orton, well, if you don't know his son, I hear voices in my head, they can't see me.
Yeah, Randy Orton, here's a who.
That's his, so Randy Orton, that's his dad. Who was not used to have a cast, he wouldn't really use it. Anyway. But it was a great, and of course you had the late Jimmy Smith on Hulk Hogan's side, which was really cool. Because you had Muhammad Ali getting involved, that was crazy when you get Roddy Piper. But it was a great main event. That's a great main event to close out WrestleMania, the first WrestleMania. Hogan and Mr. came out on top. It was what a win for it.
Yeah.
What a win for those two, and of course But yeah, and what we're talking about after this, it will lead to the boxing match between Piper and Mr. T. And also now, if you go to ringside, you can get the Elite 2-pack in the boxing attire of Piper and Mr. T.
Yeah. So, what do you think? What do you think, man? What do you think we should give the very first WrestleMania?
Well,
what is your thoughts on the very first WrestleMania?
Well, the first WrestleMania is what started it all. If it wasn't for this one, there wouldn't be no WrestleMania that we would go through. There would have been no WrestleMania that actually we watched.
Yeah.
So it would, it wouldn't have set the foundation to what it was. I guess maybe I would give it maybe 10. I guess 10 out of 10. 10?
Yeah. I think we agree.
Yeah.
This deserves a 10 out of 10. The very first WrestleMania, if it wasn't for this one, if it wasn't for the first WrestleMania, and an interesting story to say the least, is that Vince didn't even think that this would even work.
Yeah.
There's a documentary on the very first WrestleMania that you can watch on the WWE Network, and he said, "Hey, I don't even think that this shit will even work. But boy, was he wrong.
He did.
So, but yeah, let us know what y'all guys think of the first episode of UBW Inside the Ring. The next time we do Inside the Ring, we are gonna go back to we're gonna go a little far. 2001 to be exact.
Uh-oh.
And the anniversary of this particular pay-per-view is coming around the corner. The next time we talk, on the next episode of Inside the Ring, me and Knights will celebrate the anniversary of one of the most notorious storylines in the history of professional wrestling.
Yes.
We are going to talk about next time the anniversary of WWF Invasion in your house.
Yes.
That is going to be next. That'll be the next episode. WWF Invasion in your house will be the next episode. I'm as always Mr. Grimreaper Problem 2 with Dark 987.
Yes.
Thank you for watching this edition of Inside the Ring. And as our UBW equivalent always says, good fight, good night,
Yeah.
and I'll see you on the afterlife. Peace.